Is dígh agus fáte chuig an drama agus an scéal seo agus cummatic me ga I won't delay you too long. Now, I was wondering tonight what I might tell here, and something practical, because you know as well as I know that a lot of people that regard, especially fairy stories, because I'm constantly met by people on the street, you don't really believe that stuff, do you? And I always have to tell them that, hold on a minute now, I do a lot of practical research behind the scenes. I go out, I talk to people. I've been doing that for the last 35 years. And not just that, but if I'm told a story by somebody I can believe, and I don't believe all the stories I'm told, not a hope. We'll say if there's somebody on the drink. Now, you can judge that for yourself. If there's somebody on something stronger than the drink, or if there's somebody who's afraid of the dark. You know, you count those kind of things down. But if you meet somebody, and I've met a few, I'd say in 35 years I've met 5 really good storytellers that you could go back to again and again and again. And once you get to know them, you say, there's a reliable person. Now, what I often do is, in cases like this, I go, when I listen to the story, back to the place that the story is about. And see, is it just, once upon a time there was a man who, one of those stories, which was just for entertainment and perfectly good. Or could there be some truth in this? Now you'd ask, why would I be looking for truth? I don't know. Some people wouldn't mind at all. Some people want something imaginative. I'd like to know whether there is anything behind this that maybe, there's something here. And you'd be amazed the number of times that you'll find that the landscape that the story describes does actually exist. Now, I was trying to think here tonight, what might I tell you, just in the short space of time I have, because I don't want to be cutting in too much on these people's time at all. But when I was doing the book on the West Clare Railway, in the tracks of the West Clare Railway, down below Milltown, I found stories about a house that moves. Now, come on, you'd say, a house that moves. There's somebody on something here. But yet, I was told about this house that it would always be back on its own place in the morning. But it stayed in my mind. I could find nothing about it at the time, but it stayed in my mind, as a kind of a peculiar thing, a house that moves. But last October, during the bad weather, the wet weather, and it was a horrible, miserable time, I found myself back around there with a little bit of time in my hands. And I said I'd call again to a couple of the people who were helpful to me when I was doing the book about the West Clare, now if they were still alive. I went to one of them, and by God, he was there, and he recognised me immediately. Nice man, because I remember in the cold days when myself and Keith were walking that line, he invited us in for the tea when we welcomed it. But it was a horrible, horrible day last October anyway, and there he was with his tractor, bringing in silage bales or carrying them somewhere, doing something with them, and shook hands and into the shed, in shelter out of the rain. And I said to him, no, don't laugh at me, don't laugh. But I said, I'm looking for this house that moves. I heard it was around here. And he said, you heard right. Come here, he said. And he brought me just outside the shed. And he pointed down into this little river valley that was below us. Now, it's not so much a river as a stream, but there's a small valley there. And he pointed across it, and he said, you see the house there inside in the palm trees? And there it was. Now he said, look to the side of the palm trees and tell me what do you see. And I could tell, even from that distance, that there was a fort there. I could tell by the bushes. And then he turned out towards the sea. We were very close to the sea here. And he said, you see the old ruined grey house beyond there? What do you see beside that? And of course, I could see another fort. Now he said, that house that you're looking at over there in the dark trees, they should have known better. They built it on the path between the two forts. Now, they were warned, they were told, but they were the kind of people that would listen to no one. This is our land, we'll build where we want to. And says your man, well, you build on a path and you're going to have no peace in a place like that. Sure, any fool knows that. Well, he said, they hadn't. And that's the reason that the house moves. Even yet, he says, any time that the fairies are passing on that path, the coach to bow, the dead coach, the fairy coach, whatever, because remember, they travel just like we do. They have their paths, they have their roads, they're very like us. One of the most frightening things an old man told me about the fairies one night was, he said, and 'tis a scary thought, the person sitting beside you could be one of them. And you wouldn't know it. He said they can take any shape they like. Any shape they like. But in any case, he said, any time that the fairies would be passing there, that house had to move out of the way. It was built on their path and to be back in its own place in the morning. Now, of course, I was interested. But he said, hold on a minute. No, he said, that's not the finish of it at all. He said, you see the man above here, a neighbour of his? Go up to him and tell him I sent you. He'll have something else to tell you. So I thanked him and I went on up. I didn't know the other man at all, but he recognised me. And as soon as I was able to tell him that your neighbour below there sent me up, welcomed me in, lovely, friendly man. But before we went in, as soon as I told him why I was there looking for the moving house and that, he stopped at the door and we could see the river valley from there also. And he pointed down into the valley. He said, you see the bridge there? And it is a bridge on the main road. I had travelled over it 10 minutes before. It is down the coast road between Milltown, Malbay, down Quilty, down onto Kilrush. But he said, you see that bridge? Now look at the one beside it. And there's an old West Clare Railway bridge. They're both parallel to each other. And he said to me, that road bridge is where the black dog used to be seen. Now, he was no ordinary black dog. He was as big as a horse. And he used to plank himself there on that bridge at night. And his backside was out to the two walls. Now, naturally enough, fellas out in their could, or coming from playing cards, or coming from wherever they were coming, the pub, they'd come to this bridge and they'd see this yoke. I mean, were you going to pass a thing like that? Even though he never did any harm to anybody, there he'd be watching you. And there was nowhere around him. And, of course, people were having to go well out of their way, down the river and up the river. And that was all right during the summertime because there's an old plank there at that same river. But in the winter time, when the river be flooded, Jesus, you could be drowned. So, eventually, what they did was, because they were wondering, how in the name of God can we get rid of this yoke, they went to the priest, the local priest. And do you think the priest believed them? Yeah, he said, if you stayed out of the pubs at night, you wouldn't be seeing black dogs. Well, you go and have a bit of sense. But it was only when the men's wives started coming to the priest that he began to take notice. Because in those days, you see, it wasn't so common for women to be going to the pubs at night. Men, well, you could just miss what men would say, maybe, but the women, And the priest began to take notice, and he said he'd check it out, just in case. So he went to the bridge the following night. Now, he was armed, he had his book, and he had the holy water, just in case, and he met nothing. He went the second night, as I said, careful man, conscientious kind of a man, met nothing. He went the third night, met nothing, and that only convinced him that these crowd, they're drunk. So the following day was a Sunday, and by God he had prepared. He preached him a sermon off of the altar about all the kind of ludromans and latchicos out at night. Wouldn't they be better off rather than spending their money and wasting it to stay at home with their wives and children, all this kind of thing. But faith, it didn't stop. The women were still coming to him and saying that the husbands couldn't get home by that road. They were having to go 2 or 3 miles out of their way. So he went back again, 4th night, nothing, 5th night, 6th night, nothing. And on the 7th night, now another man would have given up long before that. On the 7th night, just didn't he meet the dog? He met the dog at the bridge, and as I say, lucky, he was prepared. Now, the book wouldn't be much good to him, but I suppose he knew the prayers off by heart. And as the old people used to always say, the old people, that you needed the Latin prayers, the real prayers, not like the old raggedy prayers we have today. They're good for nothing, but the real Latin prayers, Nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti, Amen. And of course the priest knew them because at that time all the Mass was in Latin. Do you remember it? Intruibo ad altare Dei, adem qui letificat juventutum meum, qui tuus Deus fortitudum mea, quorum mea repolistiet, quora Christus in cedo, dum affligit me inimicus. I was an altar boy, I remember my Latin. But anyway, the priest, he said whatever he had to say, and I suppose the sprinkle of holy water, the dog, off went the dog down the river, and the man that was telling me the story said the people in their houses for a half a mile around, they heard the screeching of the dog. Nobody went out. But the following morning, a local man, going out to collect his cattle to bring him into Milcombe, he was down near where the stream goes into the sea. I won't call it an estuary because it's too small, but there he found the big dog dead. And I was told the people were coming for 15 miles around to see this monster. What in the name of God was it? As I say, the size of a horse, but the look of a dog. And you think anybody touched him? No hope, not a chance. And 2 or 3 days later, a high tide came in, washed him out, and he was seen no more. So there was something there. And I didn't stop my inquiries. I'm still inquiring. And I found out that there was something else in it, but I'll shut up now. And the something else is very short. I found out that the people who lived in the house with the dark trees, another man around there called them a shower of fire quenchers. Now, I hadn't heard the phrase at the time, but I found out since what the fire quenchers were. There were people during the famine, Catholics, who acted for the local landlord in quenching the fire and pulling down the thatch and evicting people, throwing them out on the road. And how well all of the things stuck there together, the historical, the folklore, the badness, and just threw in so many places that once a thing sticks into a place, you'll be as well off to move out of it, because you'll have no peace, you'll have no look there, and that's one of those places. And I'm quite sure I'll find out more about it yet, because like I say, I'm still inquiring. Anyway, thank you.